What's happening, friends? It's Rod with Power Group. Welcome back on the Pursuit of Wealth. Happy Friday. It is Friday, June 3rd. It's a new month. Hope you're well today. And in this video, going to be discussing a topic that has come up a lot recently. Going to give my thoughts and opinions. Of course, there's no right or wrong answer. We won't know until the time comes. But essentially going to be discussing whether or not crypto is meant for freedom or whether or not the purpose was intended for even more control. And you can let me know in the comments below what your thoughts are. Before we get to it though, make sure to smash the like, help support me and the channel. It doesn't cost you anything. If you're new here, you can subscribe and tick the bell. You'll be notified on any future updates. So again, a lot of people, I'm seeing, I cover, MJ primarily on this channel, but also something that we focus on is blockchain and cryptocurrencies. And I want to just give my thoughts and opinions and my take on this, because you've got some people from the left, some people from the complete right saying that crypto is nothing but a Ponzi scheme. It's never going to amount to anything. And then some are saying it's the new internet, the internet of value, essentially, which I'll touch on more here in a second. But then, you get some people who are saying that it's going to be used for all the wrong reasons. And this article here from Bitcoinist.com says cryptocurrency is all about freedom. And this is what we've been told from the get-go when Bitcoin was created, right? It was created by people for the people. It's the people's money. But we know that that's not exactly the case, because there's a ton of countries, there's a ton of banks that are adopting it, and there's even been ties. I won't dive too much into this for the sake of this video, but there's been ties to JP Morgan into Ethereum before it even ICO'd, before it was even available to the public. So to think that these banks and countries aren't involved is a little bit naive in my opinion. And I think the whole reason why they want to convince us that cryptocurrency is for freedom is because they know that we don't trust our governments, right? People trust individual companies like Elon Musk and Tesla more than they trust their own government. Again, I'm not speaking for everybody. I can only speak for myself, but that is the consensus that I've noticed. And I just want to talk about that. Cryptocurrency can be meant for freedom. There can be both aspects. I think there's going to be two different aspects. Essentially, you can become your own bank. So that is a perk of crypto. But again, I'm going to try to keep this a little shorter. I do have a lot I want to go over. But there's two sides to this coin, right? No pun intended. It could be for freedom, but it could be for more control, right? And we know that China just recently implemented the digital yuan, right? And this was back in January 18th, they had over 260 million individual users. And that's probably close to 500 million now, I would think. So we know that China has, banned Bitcoin, I don't know how many times, probably more than I can count. But essentially what they're trying to do, in my opinion, is they're trying to gain more control, right? So when you have a state or a country issue a certain cryptocurrency, you got to think that it's going to have a lot of controlling factors, right? There's going to be a lot of benefits to the government, right? Because it's programmable money. That's what cryptocurrency is. It's programmable money. We already have digital forms of money. We have e-transfers and things like that. And a lot of people might be wondering why cryptocurrency was created. Well, it doesn't need an intermediary, right? So you can send peer-to-peer and you can essentially be your own bank. But with China's case and their digital yuan, imagine if you spent over $10,000, they could program that money, programmable money, that any transaction over, say, the equivalent of $10,000, not sure what that is in yuan, but let's just say over $10,000, it would flag the authorities, right? And we know the Communist Party of China would be all about that, right? Because they want to make sure that it's not used for nefarious reasons. It's not used for any kind of illicit or, any kind of terrorism activities or anything like that, right? So it gives them a lot more control and visibility. And they can say, okay, if it's over $10,000, flag it, and then they look into it, right? And they say, oh, okay, Rod just bought a car, or he bought something legitimate. Whereas if it was something for illicit purposes, they might question it, might raise a red flag, and then they might dive into it a little bit more. So from that aspect, it is about control. And you see some people who are saying, Bitcoin's all about freedom and this libertarian movement. But then you get some people who are complete on the opposite end of the spectrum who say that this is just a way for governments to gain more control over us, which both arguments can be true, right? There can be free forms of money in cryptocurrency, but there's also control. Like China's digital yuan is a classic example of more control, right? But I just want to go back into, little blast from the past here. Before we get to it, though, check out this Joe Rogan episode. Security expert Gavin DeBecker on Jeff Bezos getting his phone hacked. And they talk about how there's technology now that sovereign entities or countries, three-letter agencies, they can target you. And before, it used to be that you had to click a link or something like that, right? Whereas now, if they just send you a text or call your phone, these authorities can essentially take, and this, they talk about how it happened in Saudi Arabia, I believe it was, how the Saudis essentially created this Pegasus 2, and what it is it's spyware that hacks your phone without you even doing anything. So if they send a text to your phone, or they send a call, if they call you, they immediately have access to your phone, and they can control your microphone, your camera. They can see everything that's in your phone. Pretty scary stuff. But again, this isn't new, right? People think that cryptocurrency is new. Well, it is. It's a little over a decade old, right? But they've been working on cryptocurrencies, in my opinion, for decades, right? This is just, Bitcoin was the first iteration that actually had a consensus mechanism that could solve the double spend problem, that could interact with peer-to-peer transactions, and it was the first proof of concept that actually worked, right? Satoshi Nakamoto, who we still don't even know who it is, right? After 12 years, we still don't know who Satoshi Nakamoto, the creator, is. That's a little bit of a concern to me, right? I highly doubt that these huge financial institutions would be putting tons of money into this, like JP Morgan and all these Goldman Sachs, if they didn't know who the creator was. I mean, can you imagine, especially like companies adding Bitcoin to their balance sheet and whatnot, can you imagine the uproar if it was found out that it was created by some kind of terrorist group, or some kind of maybe North Korea or something like that? There'd be World War III. So for that reason, I don't think we'll ever really know who created it, but I personally think it was created by a group of governments or some three-letter agency, or maybe a group of three-letter agencies, right? I think PayPal also had a lot to do with it. But something that I want to just go back in time a little bit here, this is nothing new. The whole rise of the internet was a way for, the internet was created by the military, right? And the reason why they created the internet was because they had all these phone towers and they needed the communication during the world wars. And what happened was people would, their enemies would target their phone towers, and then they would be out of communication. So what they did was, the US military and the CIA, they created the Internet of Information, where you have all these routers in different locations that it's essentially impossible to bring it down, right? You'd have to essentially nuke the whole world. God forbid that ever happens, but you'd have to essentially nuke the whole world to get rid of all these routers, right? So it was just a way to decentralize one, tower into multiple, right? So the Internet of Information was born, and then it was created by the military. So if the Internet of Information was created by the military and, governments, well, who do you think created the Internet of Value, right? Probably some form of governments or government or governments, or some three-letter agency. And that's really, a lot of people get confused and too wrapped up in it. They can't wrap their head around cryptocurrency. You don't know how your phone sends text messages and all that, right? We know it's zeros and ones and some complex, computer science, but you don't need to know how that works, before you can use it, right? You just use it, right? And same with the Internet of Information. People didn't understand it, but it just worked. And now it's a part of our everyday lives. And now we have the Internet of Value. So if we can send an email information at the speed of light from here to, from North America to China in, a few seconds, well, surely we can send value, right? So that's all it is, right? It's the Internet of money. It's the Internet of value versus the Internet of information. And cryptocurrency and blockchain technology, Web3 they call it, is just another layer on top of the existing internet. So that's the most simplistic, basic way of viewing it. And think about it. We've got Find My iPhone. We've got, as long as your phone is on, actually, if your phone's off and there's a battery in it, it can still be tracked, right? So people think that this cryptocurrency thing is a new way for the governments to spy on us. And well, we know that they have this spyware, Pegasus 2, which they can take control of your phone just by sending you a text or calling you. We know that they have Find My iPhone. Your phone's trackable even when it's turned off with the battery in it. So again, this isn't new, right? They've been tracking us for years, if not decades. And this is just another layer on top of that. Yes, there's going to be things that are going to allow them to have more control over us and more insight. But again, the Internet of Value is suggested as the instant transfer of assets that can be expressed in monetary terms over the internet between peers without the need for intermediaries, aka banks, right? And it's my belief that in a few years, we're going to see the banking industry completely change. That's why we see them capitulating and embracing this technology, is because they know that they're going to be likely be disrupted and left behind if they don't get with the program, right? And then also, Edward Snowden, after 6 years in exile, explains himself, right? And he was a whistleblower that worked for the NSA that essentially said that, you know, the government was spying on us, right? So this isn't new. We've known this for many, many years, right? But Edward Snowden revealed he was one of the creators of privacy coin Zcash, right? So if you're right, Bitcoin's more traceable than cash. A lot of people think it's used for nefarious reasons, it's for criminals only. Well, actually, it's more traceable than a lot of people think. It's actually extremely traceable. And that's why they have these privacy coins like Zcash, right? And it was even proven that Edward Snowden revealed he was one of the creators, right? So again, this is all about control. This is all about spying. But where am I going with this? What's my point is, if we can't beat them, join them, right? The rich are going to get richer from this new monetary system and from this new form of currency. So instead of just sitting on the sidelines and, you know, letting all of those riches go to make the rich even richer, why not get involved, learn about how this works, and get involved in some projects, and then you can intercept that money that otherwise would have went to the already wealthy and just, you know, prevent them from getting even wealthier. And we can use that money for good, and we can help ourselves and our families and maybe some other extracurriculars that can help other people in the world as well, right? And I think that there is a great libertarian movement to it as well, but there's always going to be control, right? We can't be naive. We can't say that the government's going to, just let their currencies die, right? That they bring out the guns and the tanks before they let that happen, right? Before they give up their power, their sovereign power, right? So another thing too is, just with your IP address on your computer, hackers can track that IP address. They can find out your country, where you are, your ISP. That can even lead to your address. They can even maybe find your name just by targeting the ISP, right? So again, there's so much information exposed and accessible to these hackers online. And that's why I want to bring up one of our sponsors as well, purevpn. This helps protect your identity online. So it disguises your country of origin. It disguises your IP address. It masks it. It gives you another one. And that's the first step for a hacker to dive into your computer and really do some damage, is to get your IP address. So I would highly encourage you to check that out. You can just go to my YouTube channel and click on the About section. I'll put the link in the description below as well. But you can check that out for more information if you're interested in protecting your identity online. But going to end it there, let me know in the comments below, do you think crypto is more freedom oriented? Do you think it was created more of a control, for more of the controlling aspect? Again, I think the argument is, it can go bi-directional. You can make the argument that it's used for freedom. You can make the argument that it's used for even more control. Personally, I think that there's a lot of decentralized products and projects like XRP that are, they're not controlled by any one country. And that's why XRP is going to be so huge, is because they need a neutral bridge currency. Imagine if XRP was owned by the US, right? If they controlled and it wasn't decentralized and they had centralized control over it. Well, China wouldn't trust it, right? Or Russia wouldn't trust it, or whoever, right? Because they need to put all their trust in the US is managing this correctly. And that's what we have right now in this whole debacle in the world right now in these currencies, right? Is that trust. So with a neutral bridge currency that's controlled by no one, it removes that trust barrier, right? And I could go on a whole other video on XRP and decentralization and things like that, but it is open. All the transactions are open, right? And that's kind of cool to a certain degree, that we can see it's transparent. But again, it's also a lot more traceable, right? So if it's used for any kind of criminal activities, they can track it, right? If they have warrants and things like that. So again, let me know in the comment below. I always love hearing from you, your thoughts and opinions on this with regards to crypto for freedom, crypto for more control. Personally, I think that it's more for the controlling aspect, but there's also a lot of freedom that we can take from it as well. Personally, I'm going to be doing everything in my power to intercept this fourth revolution, industry that we have, the industrial revolution, and it's truly is a transfer of wealth that we've never seen before. And I think that over the next few years and decade or so, the next decade or two, that we're going to see a new 1% created. And that just means the wealthiest of the wealthiest. And whether or not you believe in it, whether or not you fully understand how it works, the train has left the station. It's here to stay. You've got all the biggest financial institutions in the world backing it. You've got all the biggest companies in the world backing it, right? Countries are even adopting it. Not saying that it's not going to have its trials and tribulations still, right? We could still see heavy regulation and another 80 to 90% correction, just like the MJ space has seen and just like crypto has seen multiple times in the past bear markets. So again, lots of opportunity. There's going to be lots of risk as well. But if we can position ourselves for this new revolution and this new, in my opinion, the biggest transfer of wealth in history, we can change a lot of people's lives. Thanks again for joining us on the Pursuit of Wealth. If you could hit the like one more time before you leave today, that would be greatly appreciated. If you find any value in the information that I shared today, and leave a comment. Always love hearing from you. Subscribe, tick the bell, you'll be notified on any future updates. With that, thanks again for joining us on the Pursuit of Wealth, and we'll see you in the next video.